Big E, how are you doing?
I am well. I'm quite well. So thanks. I appreciate it.
We are really excited to have you coming to see us again in the UK. One of your stops on the tour is Birmingham in the West Midlands. And I wanted to prep you a little bit for the West Midlands, if you don't mind.
Hit me.
Okay. I've got some West Midlands slang that might prove useful should you get to chat to the locals.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that.
Cool. So, all right, Bab is hello, mate. So basically it's a hello. So, all right, Bab.
All right, bub.
All right, Bab.
Okay.
All right. It's good. Boston, which normally means Boston. Something's very good or great. It's Boston.
Oh, Boston. Boston. Got you.
And ta-da a bit, which is goodbye.
Ta-da a bit?
Ta-ra a bit. Ta-ra a bit.
Ta-ra a bit. Okay.
Ta-ra a bit. So should hopefully hold you in good stead should you end up in conversation with folk.
Got you. I think I'm just going to stay quiet because I feel like I'm going to butcher these things. So it's going to be a lot of polite head nods from me.
Do you have any memories of wrestling in the United Kingdom?
Oh, of course. Obviously, I feel like the UK crowds are obviously, they're very special crowds. They always, it just everything feels different with the UK crowd. So I feel like our UK crowds tend to be our smarter fan bases. You know, they are not afraid to let you know they don't care for you if that's the case. So it's the UK crowd's always great.
Before we get into the wrestling stuff, you were breaking all kinds of records in the powerlifting world in Florida. I mean, before you got into wrestling, I know you were a fan of wrestling as a kid, but what got you into powerlifting?
So actually, I started powerlifting after I got signed with WWE. I was in FCW at the time, and Rob McIntyre, who's like John Cena's best friend, they grew up together. We were training at his gym, Cena's gym. But Rob was training us, and Rob pretty much was just like, hey, is this something that you might want to do? So it's actually a bit of a common misconception. A lot of people think that I was powerlifting before I got signed, but I was already training for about a year or so. And then we started doing some powerlifting in Florida. Then, you know, I just, not to brag too much, but I won a little national championship at super heavyweight as a powerlifter. So yeah, I did okay.
Okay, so with the wrestling stuff, so by this point you're in Florida Championship Wrestling as well. You were bit by the wrestling bug as a kid. Who was the wrestler that first jumped out at you and made you fall in love with it?
Man, I had other favorites, but the guy who was my guy was Goldberg, and I've said this a lot in interviews before. But so I got a chance to meet him. He was at a signing, I think, some in-store. This is probably the late 90s, you know, WCW was still a thing. And I remember meeting him, and he was so cool, had a smile on his face, and it just really stuck with me as, you know, and that's my hope. Anytime I have an opportunity with kids or whatnot, to never be rude, to never be short, because that roughly 30-second interaction or so that I had with Goldberg over 20 years ago, I still so fondly remember. I still have upstairs, I still have that autographed 8x10 from Goldberg. So that was such a special memory. You know, a lot of people say never meet your heroes, but I got to meet my hero, and he was really cool. And so Goldberg was my guy as a kid. I remember taking a trip to Atlanta. We went to Underground Atlanta. I bought a Goldberg shirt. I think that might have been the only wrestling shirt I had as a kid was that Goldberg shirt. And I wore it everywhere.
From having a Goldberg shirt over your shoulder, fast forward, you currently have the WWE Championship over your shoulder. Do you think that the Big E, who had 30 seconds with Goldberg, would have envisioned what is happening for you right now?
Not a chance, not a chance. And I tell so many of my friends too, I just generally just feel wildly blessed. I'm so grateful for the point I'm at in my life, even beyond my job. Just so many good things are happening in my life. And just getting to this point of being at peace and just really being like truly happy, finding self-love. It's been a real journey for me. I never envisioned, for one, even though I was a big wrestling fan as a kid, I never dreamed of being a wrestler for some reason. I guess it's one of those things. This job is so unique and weird in many ways that it's something that I just never fathomed as something that I could do. It just never crossed my mind. I never really thought I'd get to having this on my shoulder as a kid. I never would have fathomed. And it's kind of wild to think, when I was watching wrestling as a kid with my dad, flipping back and forth between Nitro and Raw, never in a million years would I have fathomed that I would not only be in WWE, but to have as many accolades and have all these just incredible opportunities that we've had as the New Day with my singles run as well. So it's life is wild. It's very wild.
What do you think you would have done instead?
So my plan actually, so I got signed right out of grad school. And my plan at the time was to spend another year working on my master's and then start working on my PhD. So that was my goal. And I wanted to be an athletic director, get into some kind of an athletic department and either be an associate AD or head AD. But I just always loved sports. And I feel like sports always brought me so much value. And I just kind of wanted to help other athletes that were, in college and kind of help them on their path. So that was my hope.
Do you get to use any of those skills that you would have used in that field in doing what you're doing now? Because obviously as WWE champion, there comes sort of a responsibility as, I know you don't like the term locker room leader, but like as somebody that people can go to, do you feel like you're using some of those skills now?
I suppose a bit. So I was a teaching assistant in college, my 1 year of grad school. And that, you have to deal with students coming up to you, asking questions, looking for guidance and whatnot. And you are right. I don't see, I guess I'm also a person who never really, I'm at nature, a quiet, introverted young man. I always was. And so I realized, I feel like I've kind of, not that I'm a leader per se, but I have realized, there are certain people who are younger than me or whatnot that I really have kind of just enjoyed being in this more veteran role. And whether it's offering advice or just trying to be a good example, I think oftentimes, when I came up, I heard these horror stories about wrestling locker rooms. And what I love is with Kofi and Woods and myself, we all see it the same way. We all wanted to leave an impression on the industry, not only on screen, but also behind the scenes, that you can be kind, that you can be welcoming, that you don't have to, haze extra talent or younger talent, that like we can make this a welcoming place. And sure, there's still a certain, level that you want to keep people at as far as, we're not just here to just have fun. We want to put on the best product possible. But I also think we can do that. We can hold people to a certain standard, but we can also have a locker room that's inviting, that people are excited to show up to work to. So that's been important to me. So, I guess as someone who never really envisioned themselves as being a leader, I never really wanted to be. Sometimes life just kind of thrusts you in these positions where more is asked of you. And I often think of that quote, to whom much is given, much is required. And I feel like I've been so blessed and given so much that my hope is that I can give back to an industry that's given so much to me.
I think a great example of that is I read that when you won the WWE Championship, you had 144 text messages on your phone.
Yes, 144 missed texts, yes.
4 hours in the car answering those. How long was it before it became, thank you, I appreciate, copy, send, copy, paste, send, copy, paste, send?
No, I really wanted to.
You sure?
So I might have copied and pasted a few messages, but I did my best. It was overwhelming. So this is absolutely. It took me 3 days, and so I had the initial 144, and then they just kept coming in and kept coming, and that's DMs and whatnot. And for anyone who actually has my number and reached out, I wanted to say, if anyone took the time to have a heartfelt message, I wanted to offer a heartfelt thank you as well. So it did take me a while, but it was a lot. But it's just so cool to get to this point where my peers, fans, people I'd known for 20 something years, so many people reached out and were so absurdly kind. And I'm grateful for every positive, warm message. I do appreciate it for real.
One person that you speak so highly of, especially after you won the title, is Brodie Lee, somebody I know has had a positive impact on your life and many others. We lost Brodie Lee last year, but is there a memory, a story that you have with Brodie Lee that always makes you smile, even on a down day?
Man, there are just so many little ones. This isn't a specific story, but I know even after he left WWE, the thing that I love when I look back is I don't have any regrets in that, I didn't talk to my friend as much when he was gone, or I didn't see him as much. Thankfully he lived about 15 minutes from me, and I got to see him all the time at the gym, and we texted on a daily basis. And I really just love the fact that, the last year or so after he was done with WWE, we might have been even tighter. We talked all the time on, like I said, on a daily basis. I'd see him in the gym. He's a guy who just brightened my day. You know, like one of those friends you just end up seeing and it feels like your whole aura is lifted. He was a guy, if I bumped into him, because oftentimes we were talking every day, but I wouldn't necessarily talk about my gym schedule. So I didn't know when he'd be in there. But when I'd see him and we'd have those moments, I just always harken back to, we'd just be foam rolling sometimes before we started working out, just talking about life. I loved how much this man loved his family. He would talk all the time about little Brodie's wrestling tournaments and how nervous he would get. He'd send me videos. One of the things that I love too with him is often if we might be 8 hours from Rochester when he was still living in Rochester, New York. We might have a show 8 hours away. And he, instead of taking the morning flight let's say the morning flight got him there, got him home at noon. If there was an opportunity to make a drive, he would drive the entire night after the show. That would get him there a few hours early. If he could get there at 8 or 9 a.m. instead, to be there with his kids, to be there with his wife, he would do that. And on a regular basis, all the time. So I love that he was such a devoted family man. And I think sometimes you have people in your life that you love and that you care about, and they're your friends, but sometimes they do some stuff that I love that he was the kind of friend that I can speak about. I can compliment openly with no worries that there was any issue with his character or anything I had to hide. Like, he's the kind of guy, and I love the outpouring of stories from fellow wrestlers, from people who had known him before I did, from people who had just met him. So many people talked about those acts of kindness. Brodie is the kind of guy who would call you if he knew you were in a bad spot or in a bad way and just offer a word of advice. He paid for people's gear. He was just such a kind dude. Under that gruff exterior, he had such a massive heart and such a great dude. And it's hard really just to isolate one story or one instance, because I'm grateful for all the memories that I have of this man.
There's so much love there. And we talk about family in wrestling. The New Day, very much family with yourself. It's Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods. You guys have been around together. I want to give you a would you rather for this. So would you rather a three-way match with all three of you fighting each other, or you in a stable full of chickens?
I assume that I don't think I talk about this a ton, but I might have mentioned my chicken phobia.
You certainly did.
Yes, live chickens. I cannot fight my brothers, so I will, much to my chagrin, I will take the stable of chickens and just pray that none of them peck my legs to death.
Where did it come from, this fear of chickens? Do you know?
I was going to say I don't know, but I think I might know. So my dad, I don't know if this is a common thing when he was growing up in Jamaica, but when I was a kid, we lived in a very residential, picket fence, suburban neighborhood. But there's one moment where instead of he would go to a meat market oftentimes and buy meat, but every now and then he would buy live animals and he would put them in the backyard, and then he would slaughter them in the backyard. So I don't remember how old I was. I was probably somewhere between 5 to 8. I saw him, put a chicken on the block, and I apologize if this is graphic, but he cuts the chicken's head off. When you're a young kid, seeing a headless chicken fly about right outside of your bedroom, I think that's what did it, honestly. When I talk about it, I think that's what scarred me, is seeing this chicken in the last minutes of his life or her life flying around the yard before eventually giving up the ghost. I think that's what did it, honestly.
I can imagine
that's what did it. Yes. So the chickens, yeah. I also had to help him slaughter. I didn't help him slaughter the goat, but he hung this goat on the picket fence, and I guess he cut it in down the seam. It was hanging from the fence, and I had to hold a skin flap of this goat. Mind you, I'm a kid. I'm a little soft kid. I didn't grow up on a farm. I didn't grow up living like this. This is not stuff that I'm accustomed to. So yeah, that's why farm animals spook me still.
I get that completely.
Yeah.
On a lighter note, away from that.
Thank you.
WWE in the UK, you're going to be all over the north of the UK, and you're going to be in Birmingham. Tell us, if people aren't convinced yet, tell us what a night with the WWE is going to be like, Big E.
It's going to be incredible. I tell everyone, you know, watching it on TV, that's incredible. But being there in person, being able to reach out, slap hands, you know, fist, you know what I mean? Bump fists, don't make it weird. With your favorite superstars is a pretty cool opportunity. It's really, really cool. And it's going to be a lot of fun. You know, for us as performers, those live events are so much fun because we have the freedom to interact, to play. It's going to be an incredible time. And we also have not been, I know there was UK tour a few weeks ago. I was not on it. So I have not been to the UK since the pandemic. It's been way too long. So we're excited to get back there in front of you. It's going to be live. It's going to be loud. It's going to be exciting. And you'll see all your favorites from Raw, including me, your WWE champion. So make sure to be there.
Come see the big meaty men slapping meat. WWE champion yes. Big E. Thank you for joining us today and all the best on the UK tour. Ta-ra,
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.